Love drama? Don't be a yes man.
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now here are your co-hosts, Marv R, Bruce H, and the Monty'man.
Well, greetings, everyone. Yes, you may come in. What is going on with my microphone? There we go. That is much better. Well, greetings and welcome to that slurping sound you just heard. That was Marv drinking his coffee. Yeah. We have all sorts of sound effects. Yeah. Okay.
And I thought that was a very mild introduction into this program this morning.
Yeah, very mild?
Until all this other started.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Bye, Bruce.
All right, this week the topic is unpacking the St. Francis prayer, the prayer of St. Francis Assisi. And we're going to be talking about that. And last week we talked about words, the power of words. This prayer is kind of the power of attitude, really. And what drives our words is our attitude many times. So we're going to be talking about the St. Francis prayer. But a little bit, something in the news, some sad news. Not for him, because now he's dancing and leaping and walking with the Lord in heaven. Richard G. Burns, pen name Dick B., passed away at age 90, early Saturday morning, September 12th. Over the years of his life and active membership in Alcoholics Anonymous, Dick B. authored 46 books on the topic of Alcoholics Anonymous, its history and purpose. He penned 1,600 articles on AA's biblical roots and has been a radio host, radio guest, a blogger, and circuit speaker, educating the public and members of Alcoholics Anonymous on the rich history of the original 12-step program and its fellowship. Not since the co-founders of AA, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, has any author written more, contributed more, or enlightened us more on the history of AA and the solution to the alcohol problem than Mr. Dick B. And it has been my privilege to have worked with Dick in person, as well as host the AA History Show here for a couple of years with Dick. Dick's work continues through his loyal and dedicated son, Ken, who has the passion and fire of his incredible father, and he really does. He's an amazing man in his own right. And in a statement made earlier this week on social media, Dick's son, Ken, states, quote, "I would appreciate your prayers as I put his estate in order and take over responsibility for my dad's efforts to share with the world the roles played by God, his son Jesus Christ, and the Bible in the astonishing successes of early Alcoholics Anonymous in helping seemingly hopeless, medically hopeless, last gasp case real alcoholics recover from their alcoholism," end quote. So, listeners, if you'd like to help Ken in his efforts to carry on his dad's work, you can email him at kcb00799@gmail.com. That's kcb00799@gmail.com. It's a sad day, a sad week, the loss of Dick B. He was a good friend of mine. He was an amazing man. And but he's with the Lord now, and what better place to be? So in honor and celebration of Dick's work, I have a gift for Marv and Bruce, and I'll tell you how you can get yours as well. These books are called "By the Power of God: A Guide to Early AA Groups and Forming Similar Groups Today." This isn't just I'll read this book and I can form an AA group that is centered on Christ. There's a lot more in this than that. But there's some really interesting stuff in here on the early history of Alcoholics Anonymous. And these are for you guys.
Thank you.
You betcha. Reach over the desk here. if you would like a copy of this book, By the Power of God, by Dick B., go to take12radio.com. You can click on our store link at the bottom of the page, and you can order a copy of this book. It goes the proceeds go to help keep Take 12 Radio on the air, a venture that Dick and his son Ken have supported and believed in for a very long time, really since our conception. So there's that there about Dick. We're going to miss you, brother. Good job, though. Well done, good and faithful servant. All right, so we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we've got some very interesting trivia from Cecil.
Oh, no.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. And then we're going to look at the St. Francis prayer, the power of a different kind of attitude than sometimes we take in life. So don't go away. More when we come back.
Hey, look! Running around in the meetings, gobbling up gallons of bad coffee, flapping his gums wherever he can bring a smile to a hurting face. It's Slogan Man! We know cute little platitudes and sayings on the wall in 12-step meeting won't keep you sober, but they sure will make you think, consider, and even laugh your way through an otherwise crappy day. Can't wait to get to your home group to hear those slogans over and over and over and over again? No need to. Pick up a copy of the 12-Step Gazette and join the adventures of Slogan Man. Visit www.12stepgazette.com and subscribe today. Slogans and platitudes are no substitute for working the steps, but Slogan Man is very cool.
Hey, addiction is the #1 health crisis in our nation, but you can be a part of the solution. Save this date, Saturday, October 3rd, 2015. It's the 4th annual Hope Fest, His Grace is Enough for You, in Prescott, Arizona, at the Prescott Courthouse Plaza. Live music, local and national recording artists, guest speakers, community resource fair, food and vendor booths, and so much more. For more information, visit hopefestaz.com.
Hey, Monty'man, I understand that you are going to be attending this year's Hope Fest in Arizona with Marco Ronzi.
Yes, Cecil, that's true. So if you want to meet the Monty'man, I will be at the Hope Fest, and it's actually not pronounced Prescott. It's actually pronounced Prescott. Prescott, Arizona. I was corrected by the city officials of Prescott, Arizona, a few weeks ago. But I am going to be there on October 3rd with Marco Ronzi. And a special thank you to Marco. Marco is footing the bill to fly me out there. And Marco has been on my board of directors. He's also been a loyal listener since the beginning. So thank you, Marco, for doing that and making Take 12 available for Hope Fest 2015 in Arizona. So that's gonna be fun.
Hey Marv, hey Bruce, I have a question for you guys. How well do you think you know the Monty'man?
That's a loaded question.
What do you think, Marv? How well do you think you know the Monty'man?
Well, I can't know.
Well, we'll see, because this week's trivia will test your knowledge of the overly opinionated Monty'man on this week's Take 12 Trivia.
That's right. This week's Take 12 Trivia is brought to you by Freedom Interventions. Matt and the gang. If you are in need of an intervention or you know someone who is, contact Matt at freedominterventions.com. Okie dokie. How well do you know the Monty'man? You have three questions and a bonus. If you get it right, you'll hear this. If you get it wrong, you'll hear this. Question number Mark looks over at Bruce. What's wrong with this man? Question number 1. When I was 2 years old, I was adopted by Robert and Marilyn Meyer. For a short time, I lived in the city of Vacaville, California.
I didn't know that.
Well, I'm telling you that part.
Okay.
See, because the next time you'll know that, right? So for a short time I lived in Vacaville, California. But what California town did I actually grow up in? Here are your choices: Santa Rosa, Petaluma, or San Francisco.
That dadgone Cecil.
Santa Rosa.
Petaluma.
Petaluma. Well, Marv, you get that. And Bruce, you get that. Yes, it was in. That's going to get annoying.
Aren't them towns close together?
Santa Rosa and Petaluma. Actually, yes, they are. They're like 20 minutes apart. Yeah, it's like come from here to Lebanon.
That's why I got it wrong.
That's why you got it wrong. It was Petaluma. And if you look on the wall behind me, you would see the city logo, Petaluma. There you go. All right, number 2.
Now, that's just not right.
I know. And number 2, many alcoholics turn their will and their life over to the care of God during the recovery process. Some, however, did this many years before they ever started drinking. When did my first encounter with the Lord take place? A, was it before I ever took a drink? Was it B, after I had been fooling around with alcohol for a short time? Or was it C, after alcoholism took me down?
Before you ever took a drink.
Before I ever took a drink? What do you say, Marv?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, you guys are correct. That is it. Number 3, 18 years ago, my lips tasted alcohol for the last time. What type of alcohol was it? Was it rum? Was it whiskey? Or was it beer?
Rum.
Marv says rum.
Whiskey.
Whiskey? Well, Marv, sorry, buddy. Bruce, you are correct. It was Wild Turkey 101. Okay, number 4. Here's your bonus. Okay, active alcoholism takes us down many roads, including interstate highway blackout. We sometimes wake up in many strange places. Approximately 30 years ago, I passed out on Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. Where did I wake up 2 weeks later? Was it Iowa, Texas, or Oregon?
Oregon.
I don't think you ever woke up.
Yeah, I don't know. Wake up! So Marv says Oregon. What do you say, Bruce? Iowa, Texas, or Oregon?
Texas.
Well, Marv, you are correct. It was Oregon. Bruce, you got that wrong. I love that laugh. Yes, I did wake up in Oregon 2 weeks later. And at the San Am rest stops, drove a little bit further, ended up in Milwaukee. Got into a phone booth and called a guy that I knew years ago. That I didn't know what town in Oregon he lived in, but I just thought I'd give it a shot. And he ended up living only 2 blocks away from the phone booth.
I woke up.
Really?
I woke up in Mill City.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So we both woke up in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Are you awake?
No.
Are you? Wake up. All right. That does it for Take 12 trivia for this week.
You guys are kind of like my old buddy that I used to know. That he had, when he'd drink, he'd had this disease.
And what was that?
Well, he'd break out in spots.
He'd break out in spots?
Yeah. San Francisco, Chicago, Cleveland.
I heard.
Sounds kind of like you guys.
Yeah.
One time I woke up Bullhead City.
Yeah.
With one boot on, walking down Highway 95.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Couldn't
word.
find my other boot.
I heard a story about a lady who passed out in San Francisco and woke up in Tokyo a month later.
Wow.
Yeah. On a tahami mat, she woke up.
Wow.
What a wake-up call. All right, we're going to be right back with the St. Francis Prayer. Don't go away.
As men and women who have recovered from utterly hopeless states of addiction ourselves, we know all too well what it's like to battle addiction daily. We are Origins Recovery Centers. Here at Origins, we have taken that which we have learned along the way, excised anything unhelpful and unnecessary, infused it with the latest medical research and innovative therapeutic methods, and created what we know to be the absolute gold standard in substance abuse treatment. and Origins provides the most preeminent aftercare and relapse prevention program available in the United States. For a free confidential clinical assessment, call toll-free 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Hello there. This is the Monty'man from Take 12 Radio. You know, men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Well, Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia is a Greek word for healing. Traditionally, classic Greek medicine was holistic. It viewed the mind and body as one. At Therapia Addiction Healing Center, they have developed a holistic healing approach to treating addiction that is designed to bring into balance the mind, body, and the spirit. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, helping people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. Welcome back to the show. And this week we're talking about the St. Francis prayer, St. Francis of Assisi. The most common picture of St. Francis is also the most common statue of St. Francis, with him standing there in his saintly garb with a bird on his finger or on his shoulder, depending on which version you have. The prayer of St. Francis in many 12-step fellowships, particularly Alcoholics Anonymous, has been a prayer that has been printed in some of the literature. This prayer has been attributed to St. Francis, but many of you may not know that St. Francis did not write this. But before we talk about that, let's read that. One of you guys want to read this? Who wants to read this? Marv wants to read it.
I do?
Yeah, Marv, you want to read it.
All right.
Okay.
So it goes like this. What are you laughing about, Bruce? You didn't know I could read, did you?
I'm not going to say anything. I'm in enough trouble with Cecil.
So it says, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, that where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there are shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life.
Yeah. Hefty prayer. Tap your mic for a minute, Marv.
Tap it?
Yeah. Okay, now hold it for a second on the metal part. I'm going to see if we can't get rid of that. Nope, it's not going to go away. All right. Okay, so put up with the hum, folks. We are. But that's a hefty prayer. I mean, it's obviously St. Francis, or not St. Francis, but the attitude of St. Francis. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But the author of this prayer certainly understands the whole concept of what we bring to the world, not what we get from it. You know, he says, that I may bring, that I may bring, that I may bring, not that I may take, which like stands out like crazy here. But just a little history on this thing for those of you that may not know. The first appearance of what was commonly known as the Peace Prayer, the St. Francis Prayer, occurred in France in 1912 in a small spiritual magazine called The Little Bell. It was published in Paris by a Catholic association known as the Holy Mass League, founded in 1901 by a French priest, Father Esther, 1855 to 1923. The prayer bore the title of A Beautiful Prayer to Say During the Mass and was published anonymously. The author could have possibly been Father Esther himself, but until now the identity of the author remains a mystery. The prayer was sent in France to Pope Benedict in 1915. This was soon followed by its 1916 appearance in Italian. Around 1920, the prayer was printed in a French Franciscan priest on the back of an image of St. Francis with the title Prayer for Peace, but without being attributed to the saint. Between the two world wars, the prayer circulated in Europe and was translated into English. It became the pocket prayer for literally thousands of military personnel. This prayer for peace began circulating widely as the prayer of St. Francis, and over the years has gained a worldwide popularity with people of all faiths. It was a lot of people thought he wrote it because there was a picture on the back of the card of St. Francis. And so there was an assumption that, by the military that this was authored by him. We're not really sure who did. But because of the dates and the times and things like that, they're pretty sure it wasn't him.
I wrote it.
Bruce wrote it. Yeah. Okay. Why don't you live by it then, Bruce? Yeah. Well, we can write things but not live by them. I know that. My wife points it out to me all the time. If you would just live by your own advice, you'd do a lot better. Right? Well, I think this guy...
I didn't write it.
He didn't write it. I think whoever wrote this certainly understood the concept. I don't know how well he lived
I think
by
he's
it.
been hanging around Cecil too long.
I think he has been. But St. Francis certainly did live this lifestyle, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's attributed to him. So let's unpack this a little bit. The first part, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And I'm just going to read the little commentary here. Like that of Christ, our mission on earth is to bring to others God's peace, God's state of perfect well-being and completeness. Shalom is the Hebrew word for this rich concept of peace, often used as a greeting of peace. Shalom is a wish that those who greeted will find healing and fullness of life. St. Francis saw this as his mission. He advised his followers that in going about the world, they should not be quarrelsome or take part in disputes with words or criticize others, but they should be gentle, peaceful, and unassuming, courteous and humble, speaking respectfully to everyone. Whatever house they enter, they should first say, peace to this house, before they walk in. And I know I have some Jewish friends. That's what they do before they enter your home. They say, peace to this house. That's part of what they do before they ever walk into the home. We talked last week about, before going into our 12-step meeting, saying a prayer before we walk in. God, bridle my tongue, give me the right attitude, that kind of thing. That'd be kind of a form of that. Peace be in this meeting, because some of our meetings definitely need it. But what about being an instrument of God's peace? Not our peace, but His peace. Bruce, you want to comment?
No. I will. I know. The thing that strikes me with this is, says, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're starting something here that, how do we access God and His peace?
Mm.
For we can do these other things that fall on behind this, where we could, to bring, where there's hatred, to bring love. How do we do that?
Do we do that? Can we do that?
Well, I think we can. It's just that, with me, I don't think it's a quality that I have in and of myself.
Right.
And I'm trying to look for His peace. And the only way, Marv, I can do this, Monty, is to go to the cross and to see that it's my sin that has him there, and realize that while I was yet enemies with him, that he come and forgave me. And if he's willing to do that for me, am I willing to turn around and give that to others? And there's times in my life when I don't have that, even that willingness to do that.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Do you identify with that, Marv? Is there times when you're not really willing to be an instrument of peace?
Do I look like I'm willing? It's a struggle. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think it is for all of us. This prayer is so deep in a spiritual context, and I look at this thing and just like so much of Scripture, it overwhelms me. How can I possibly come close to this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Bruce said, I can't on my own.
Right.
And I have to go to the Lord and say, hey, I need you more than I need the very air that I breathe. But, I'm not tiptoe through the tulips kind of thing. And and I really have a hard time sometimes with the emotional part of this. I was thinking about, not this prayer, but the other day I was thinking about how hard a time I have. And and that's something, not that intellectually I don't understand.
Right.
But emotionally, a lot of times it's disconnected. And I think I kind of swallow hard when I say this, but I think it's where it came from. And so the process is, the way I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that even in that type of thing, I have to go to the Lord. Mm-hmm. All the answers, all the solution is right there.
Mm-hmm.
And this prayer is basically, to me, that's kind of what it's telling me. And it's also telling me, again, it's a process.
If we could do this, we wouldn't need to pray this. It'd just be automatic, right? We wouldn't need to ask God, because that's what he's doing. He's asking for God's help.
Right.
Yeah, I love the way that he starts it, though, because we're acknowledging the fact that we need God. So if we're doing that, we recognize that in and of ourselves, we don't have the ability to do these things that are written down here in this prayer.
Right.
Then we're going to go to him with a different heart and a different attitude.
Yeah.
Maybe for the first time in our lives, if we continue to see this and our prayer changes and our heart changes, you see. And I think that's giving glory to him. We've been given self-will, but we go to him because of what's taken place.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. You bet. Okay. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. St. Francis tells his followers, our Lord says in the gospel, love your enemies, in Matthew 5:44. A man really loves his enemy when he is not offended by the injury done to himself, but for love of God feels burning sorrow for the sin his enemy has brought on his own soul, and proves his love in a practical way. I thought this was really interesting, this statement. A man really loves his enemy when he is not offended by the injury done to himself. So I'm like, how do I know that that I love my enemy? He's stating when you're not offended by the injury that was done by your enemy. And I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. That's a good ideal, but there are people, I do love them, but I'm still dealing with kind of some offense. Doesn't mean I don't love them, does it?
What occurred to me while you were reading that is a person gives up his rights when offended by somebody. You give up the right to be able to say, you can't treat me like that. I don't deserve that. You
relinquish that.
And that brings back, in my mind, a thing I've struggled with for lots and lots of years is love, as I understand it today, is an action, not a feeling.
Right. You bet.
And although you may feel offended inside, it's your action that you take that makes the difference, I think. I may be wrong, but which is love.
Yeah. Bruce?
Yeah. I'm thinking of two scriptures that, again, like I said earlier, that when I was yet his enemy,
Yeah.
And then John 3:16, that while that was taking place, he gave his only begotten son.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, he returned it in love.
He didn't say, when you get your act together, then I'm going to give my only begotten son.
No, it said, while I was yet his enemy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And if that isn't feeling burning sorrow for our sin, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So can we do that? I mean...
see, that's why I think it has to come from a divine source.
I do too.
You see.
I don't... And this is just... I believe this is absolute fact. I really do. I don't think that we can do this without the Spirit of the living God living in us.
But now let's get...
I don't think we're capable of it.
Well, I would agree, but let's get something right. I think what Marv said ties in with this, too. I don't believe in let go and let God. You see what I mean?
You mean just let go and just sit on your rear end and let God take care of everything?
Yeah,
right.
And so I think love is an action.
Yes.
It's like he's saying, it's not what's going on in here. It's how we're going to operate. And if we operate out of what Christ did for us, then the world would be different.
Mm-hmm.
Say, instead of doing it for something.
Right.
So if God loved us and he wants us to show that love, then we should be in action.
Yes.
See, we should be doing that. And now I'm not saying we'd do it real well here or real well there, but we would be practicing this thing. I think we'd be doing, if I can use this term because I hate it, the next right thing.
Oh, yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And
so the next right thing may be the action part.
Living out of his blessings.
Instead of just sitting there saying, God changed my heart, and God say, okay, now I want you to get up, and I want you to move forward in this. But a lot of people say, let go and let God. They just say, God changed my heart. And that's it. But then they don't do anything. And you say, we need to participate.
Yeah. So if I've got Marv right, and he might be able to talk about this more and in a better way than I would, I think that he's saying that it doesn't matter how you feel inside. Take action.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which brings us to this next piece. This thing just kind of blossoms open as it goes. Where there is injury, pardon. Okay, now we've gone from just an attitude, I don't like you, to you've injured me. You've injured me. During the violence-ridden crusade, St. Francis discovered a path of peace, pardon, and nonviolence. The little poor man went to Egypt to engage in a peaceful dialogue with the Sultan, head of the Muslim forces, a meeting in which a spirit of forgiveness, respect, and understanding prevailed. Francis would have the same message for those in our times who are quick to see violence as the only cure for terrorism. When as a young man, Francis found himself in a fog of doubt as to the nature of God's care for him. He sought the face of God through prayer in solitary places. God opened Francis's eyes of faith. The saint saw a vision of Christ gazing at him from the cross, and such a look of love that Francis' soul melted. To use the words of his biographer, Saint Bonaventure, the fog of doubt lifted for Francis, and he went through the world setting others free from their own burdens of doubt. So, where there's injury, pardon. Okay, you said it a minute ago, my sin that put Christ on the cross. Okay, so that injury, he pardoned us of that. How often do we pardon people? How ready and willing are we to pardon somebody, which means to wipe their debt clean, who have injured us? Boy, that's rough.
See, that's why I think it has to start on a personal level and then go to a corporate level.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. I'm not sure that you could do this in terrorism on a national or global.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. You see what I mean? It's.
And forgive me, but I kind of crossed over. That also goes into where there's doubt, faith, because you're going to have faith in a power greater than yourself, be able to perform these acts of pardon, aren't you? I mean, I don't see where you could do it on your own.
Yeah, and if we can start to do that on an individual basis, then I think we could, and start putting it into our lives. Then I think it would take a process. It would grow. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it's the right way to go.
I read Go ahead, Marv.
Well, I don't want to distract anybody, but
no, go
I'm
ahead.
Sitting here thinking to myself, so if I am a newcomer in AA and this comes up in a meeting,
like somebody reads the prayer at the end of a meeting or something like that, right?
And I can see where the hopelessness of this would bring people great despair. And the reason I say that is because, and you guys know this as well as anybody does, that a lot of the way I think has to do with the process.
Right.
I keep bringing that up, and
sure.
I know I do. So here, and I'm just going to use myself for an example. Years ago, as a newcomer in AA, I was, in my own mind, a worthless
piece
of no value.
Yeah.
So I would read stuff like this, and it would just make me cringe. Because in my mind, and I know there's a lot of new people out there, in my mind, there was no way I could ever be good enough to fit into this kind of a criteria.
I'll never be a St. Francis.
I'll never be loved by God.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Right.
So in the process, as time went on, somehow or another, I started to realize the meaning of grace, which allowed me to understand that I was qualified because God loved me, which was something I could not grasp in the beginning.
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, to me, the understanding of this prayer is directly related to our understanding of God's grace. And it's like Bruce said a few minutes ago, unless we can understand what he's done for us before we even had a clue, we're not going to get this kind of stuff.
You're right.
Does any of that make sense?
Yeah. And I don't hear you saying that we shouldn't read this.
No, I'm just saying I know what that kind of stuff did to me in the beginning because I was convinced.
Right.
I would not be ever qualified.
And don't you think this is one of the reasons why there was such an emphasis in the early days of, for instance, Alcoholics Anonymous, that people would come alongside you, they would make the approach to help you walk through this stuff?
That's right.
Yeah.
Because of things like that.
Yes.
And we don't do that today like we did back then.
No, I don't think we do, because, see, my understanding of God, if I could say, was tweaked a little differently than Marv's.
Right. Yeah.
And still the same process healed me.
Right.
That I think did.
Yeah. That's a powerful statement right there. My understanding was different, but the same process healed me. Wow. That's really cool. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Think of St. Francis embracing lepers and lovingly washing their sores. Surely many of those suffering souls felt an inner surge of hope and human dignity when they experienced Francis's care. Now, this is interesting because it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Marv. I had a difficult time. I didn't know how to respond when people would embrace my leprosy, so to speak. I was like, are you being truthful? Do you really do care?
It was really uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I appreciated it from the very beginning, but I wasn't sure how to maneuver that. Part of me was like, this is just another street trick. Because, living on the streets, there's this game you play. There's this dance you do with each other. And you kind of almost expect that to be the same way everywhere when you're new. And another part of me, I didn't know if I should trust it or, it was uncomfortable. I weathered the storm, but knowing that people may be uncomfortable by, our actions of being loving towards them and accepting and so forth should not stop us from doing so. We still need to do that. And I think sometimes we give up. I mean, I've done that with people I've worked with. I thought, you know what? This guy isn't listening. He isn't, and I'll just kind of throw my hands in the air and say, heck with it. And sometimes I think we need to put up with a little bit more, I guess, from people, depending on where they're at. Bruce, any comments? Where there is despair, hope, where there is darkness, light?
Yeah, but the example that I would use is that, we want to shun the Pete's of the world instead of reach out to him. And I'm not talking about give him a few dollars for a drink or.
And for the listeners that don't know, we're talking about an individual in Bruce's life where there seems to be a lack of peace. There's some conflict going on. The guy's done some stuff that is.
Yeah, but I'm talking in a general way.
So the pizza of the world. Okay, so go ahead.
The guys that got tattoos on them and they're shocking and they,
because he's on his face.
They live on the street and. They grow the long beards and they're dirty and they push carts and, and they carry their stuff around with them. And when they come into the rooms, we're afraid to reach out to them,
Yeah, they may
say
smell.
something nice.
Yeah.
So, but St. Francis talked about washing their feet and doing things like this, you see. But we want to throw money at them or do something of that and to say that we helped, And I don't think that's what AA is put in place for them. Now, they have to want this thing, you know what I mean? But I think we should be offering, And we're waiting for them to contact us. We give them a list of phone numbers. And
tell them to call before they drink. Every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah, right. I never did that. But I did have somebody reach out to me and say, kind of put their arm around me and say, hey, come with me. Let me show you some stuff.
There's a guy that talks about where The guy actually come and picked him up, put him in the shower, and showered, and bathed him and took all the poop off of him and
Wow.
put him in some clothes and took him to a meeting. He hadn't drank from that day to this.
Wow.
I mean, there's a miracle. But see, this guy was willing to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many of us are, I don't think all of us were set up to do this, but I think that we should learn that it's an altruistic movement. You know what I mean?
Right. And then this one, and where there is sadness, joy. The secret of St. Francis, a joyful spirit, was his vibrant belief in a God of overflowing goodness and love. St. Francis was so in love with God that at times he would pick up 2 sticks from the ground, tuck one under his chin like a violin, and move the other over it like a bow. Then, in an ecstasy of joy, he would sing in French songs of love and praise to God. Francis used to say that he wanted his followers to go about the world like strolling minstrels, to inspire the hearts of people and stir them to spiritual joy. They give us an example to follow in our own day. And I keep thinking of that scripture verse, the joy of the Lord is my strength. Not my joy, not the world's joy, not happiness. I hear it all the time, don't you guys? I just want to be happy. Do you want to have peace or do you want to be happy? And I'm like, I don't want to be happy. I mean, happy's great, but happy is based on my happenings. That's where that whole comes from. And sometimes my happenings aren't so happy. I want the joy of the Lord that I can experience, because it's His joy, even if my happenings are crappy. You know what I mean? That serenity that only can come from the Creator in the midst of my circumstances. Because we're not always going to be happy, but we can always tap into God's joy. And I think St. Francis knew that. Again, it's God's joy. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Not Bruce's joy, not Marv's joy. Because I can experience joy with you when something happens in your life.
Again,
and we should.
Again, I'll pose the first question that we had. How do we do that?
Yeah.
And I think that I'll put it to you this way, and this is what I done. I used the big book as my authority to how AA was to be done. Mm-hmm. It was my blueprint, people say, to do these steps.
Yeah.
And that's what I used. I didn't listen to what others said.
Right.
Okay. That was my focus. That's where my truth came from.
That was your instructional manual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was how I used it. Now that I'm a child of God's, what am I going to use to grow?
Right. You use the Word of God.
I use the Word of God.
Yeah.
See, and that's my food even. And that's how I feed myself spiritually. Mm-hmm. See? And so just like I feed myself, my flesh, and for I can be healthy, well, then I want to feed myself spiritually. And I'm trying to get that to be the center of my life and have everything to do with my values and have everything that to have about my beliefs, have everything to do with my beliefs, and then that'll have everything to do with my conduct.
Marv, the Word of God says, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice.
Yeah.
Something, I don't even remember this, but I've heard you say before when somebody has accomplished something, or that you will congratulate them, or you'll be happy for them, or you've left this studio many times saying, this was a privilege, and you've rejoiced when you knew we were going to be on the air for another year, that kind of thing. Is it easy? I'm going to ask Marv this first. Is it easier to rejoice with somebody that's rejoicing than it is to weep with them when they're weeping, or vice versa for you?
I'm not sure how to come up with an answer because I've done both.
You've done both. Is it?
I think, yeah. I guess I'd rather do the rejoicing thing.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of things on my mind while you guys were talking.
Yeah.
I'll just bring them up, and if I'm off base, let me know right away. But I was thinking about the Good Samaritan story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when that guy found the other guy laying along the road all beat up and stuff, and he went about helping him, do you think he liked him?
I don't think. Well, how could he? He didn't even know him.
Well, I know, and then you've got the Samaritans and the Jews.
Right, they were not friendly.
In clash
Yeah.
with each other.
Right.
So, to me, that the guy did what, at least in my mind, he thought God wanted him to do. It didn't matter whether he liked the guy or where he came from or what he looked like.
Or how he felt about it.
Yeah.
He just did
Yeah.
what God wanted him to do.
So then, as I thought about that, something else, and this may be where I'm way off track. I tend to do that because I think too much. But what does it mean? What are the boundaries when it says in Scripture, don't cast your pearls before swine? Well, is there a boundary here?
Yes, I think there is. And it's interesting because we had this discussion last night, some of us, about that. How far do you go?
Yeah.
You know, if a person's not willing to receive, this was in the contents of receiving some assistance for, some recovery assistance from addiction. If a person's not even willing to consider being willing, how far do you go? What do you do? And, our in the contents of 12-step programs, we're told in the literature, basically, you don't cast your pearl before swine. You need to move on to somebody that is willing. That may be a little different. But I think there does come a place where you have to set a boundary, and because I think sometimes we fall into codependency and we're not helping the person if we continue. I don't know. What do you think, Bruce?
Yeah, I think I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've crossed over that line, and I have done that.
Yeah.
And I think it has something to do with my pride, that if I just said the right thing or did the right thing, that something would take place in this person's life, instead of leading them towards a dependence upon God. Mm-hmm. I will overstep my bounds, but I think there is a place. I think we have to be careful about bringing people home to our families, especially if we don't talk to our spouses about it.
Right.
Those type of things. And if it's not producing any fruit and the person doesn't want to do the work, well, then why should you continue? It says in our literature that you're ruining the chance to work with somebody else that might want it.
I'm looking something up here.
So then the other part of the story is, this is all what this prayer. When I read this prayer or think about it, it does. There's an emotional segment to it that touches me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of the story is, it says it right here, that when there is error, I may bring truth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, truth is going to bring a reaction of extreme anger.
You bet. It's not always going to be welcome.
I just had that happen a week ago. The guy went nutso on me because I was telling him the truth, and I was kind of tickled in a way because I was able to not back down. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? A lot
yeah,
of times, I'm not a confrontational type person.
Right.
I don't like confrontation. But for some reason or another, in this incident, and I won't get into it, but in this incident, it was like the Lord gave me this little bit of extra something that left me smiling at this guy and telling him the truth, even after he'd already blown up at me a couple times. And I don't know why I'm saying this.
Well, you know, just because you love somebody doesn't necessarily. I mean, we have this idea, especially in today's world, that you just need to love everybody, and that love means that you tell them what they want to hear and not tell them the truth, and that's not love. At the very least, that's codependency. You know. So, but the other flip side of the coin is just because it's true, should you say it? I mean, you know, if I'm in an elevator full of people and I've got gas, I'm probably not going to admit it. It's the truth, right?
Yeah.
But is it going to be helpful? And so I think it requires wisdom. And again, like what Bruce refers to all the time, we really need to seek the Lord on these things. Because sometimes the truth will set you free, but is it the right timing? Is it you know, and if you had a peace in your heart after you stated it, I'm going to guess that was God's, you know, knocking on your heart that you did the right thing.
You know, when we're sponsors in 12-step programs, we enter into people's lives and we get to know them and we walk with them.
Right.
And we try to show them this method by which we took a look at taking our eyes off the world and putting it on ourselves, for we can approach God with a different attitude. That's the gist of it, is I understand it. When we become children of God and servants of God, what do? We go out and make disciples.
Right.
We enter into people's lives. That means the good and the bad. You see what I mean? And then we can make some discernment, and I think we have authority to speak like Marv was talking about. But if we don't know an individual or something like that, we're going to be a little leery. We're not going to tell them things that we're going to get adverse reactions from them. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. We've learned to not do that. Mm-hmm. See, and that's what I think we're lacking in today, is we don't have people willing to take the risk.
Sure.
You see what I mean?
There are some folks that
encourage and be there and to admonish at times.
There are some folks that I don't care. You could buy them a new car, you could paint their house, you could landscape their yard, and they're still going to be angry with you. You know what I mean? You could be as gentle and kind. In reference to what you were talking about, in Matthew 10:14, it says, "If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet." You know, after a while, if somebody is not receptive, you need to move on.
I agree.
In fact, in the context of that, in verse 13, it says, "If the house is worthy, give it your blessing of peace. But if it is not worthy, take back your blessing of peace. Whoever does not receive you or heed your words as you go out of that house or that city, shake the dust off your feet. Truly, I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city." Mm-hmm. So if God is leading, and that's the key, if God is leading you in a direction to make an approach to somebody about whatever, and they're not willing to receive it.
When I got in trouble, I think the big reason is because I wasn't doing what Marv said. You know, I wasn't using discernment.
Yeah.
You know, it was just all about if I just do this, or I just hang in there. You see what I mean?
Right.
And so I was wrong.
Yeah.
I got myself in some messes. And,
yeah.
I'd actually offended my family, and in the process offended God.
I had to go to a guy that I was working with here recently and sit him down, somebody I was sponsoring, and say to him, because he was not following directions. And I just said, I may not be the right person to work with you. And he said, yeah, I don't think you are. And we parted friends, and he's actually doing rather well. Maybe I wasn't the right person to work with him. But yeah, I think you're right, Marv. I think there's a time when you have to.
Who better if you're working with this person and you're reaching out and you're getting to know him? Who has to do that but you?
Interesting. Yeah, and that's hard to do, though.
You bet it.
It's hard to cut somebody loose like that. The thing, I'm second guessing myself. Should I hung in there a little longer? Should I, but it worked out.
Yeah, I think we need to trust in the fact that whenever you're done, whenever I'm done, that somebody else is going to take over because God loves that guy.
Right. So, is it dependent on me?
Yeah.
Because if I'm thinking, oh, man, I can't let this guy go. I mean, he'll be lost forever. Then I'm thinking it's all about me, right? And you're right. Do I trust God enough to entrust this guy to his care? Yeah, you're right. And then he says in the St. Francis prayer, O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in the pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Francis of Assisi may not have written these words of the prayer attributed to him, but he certainly lived them. Everyone who is able to read and understand these words, moreover, readily sees that they communicate the heart of the Gospels and capture what is most essential in the world's great religions. So we see the peace prayer of St. Francis is a deep well of spiritual wisdom. We are wise to visit this well often. Often. Because I have to be reminded of this stuff.
Isn't it kind of upside down and backwards?
Yeah. That he who will lose his life will gain it? That kind of thing?
Yeah, but I mean, a person that forgives gets forgiven.
Right.
We don't think of it like that. We just,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We're such right fighters,
So
we're such right fighters, the human beings, This is like you were saying, giving up our rights, but we don't want to do that. There are dads out there today that are screaming at their wives and children. I am the head of this home. I am the high priest of my house. I am the authority. I am the final word. You will fall under my command or you will experience the consequences. Thousands and thousands of men of faith that act like that. And that is not being a man of peace.
Well, I think just because we're Christians and people of faith doesn't mean that we don't have those sort of situations. I believe I'm a man of God. I really do. But I have these outbursts that prove to me.
Me too.
It's crazy. And it amazes me how unwilling I am to do something when all has been done for me.
Yeah.
It just amazes me, the defiance and the stubbornness and the pride that that mankind is full of, and I'm talking about me.
Right.
And to know that these things are supposed to be done, that we're supposed to live our life in a different manner, and we don't even have the willingness to do it. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And we know the results would be better if we did it.
We're out of time, guys. Hey, listen, next week, we're going to be talking about page 11 in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, wow.
Page 11 talks about who Bill and Ebby were talking about. And this is going to be, some people aren't going to like this, but this is in the Big Book where it mentions Christ by name. People are going, I didn't know that was in the big book. Yes, it is. At the very top of page 11. We're going to discuss Bill's attitude towards Christ and the church and what he realized through Ebby's testimony to him, what was really going on, and maybe some of his thinking errors. It'll blow your mind if you've never thought of this before. If you're in a 12-step fellowship, particularly AA, what was really being said in this wonderful dialogue that went on between Bill and his former drinking buddy, who had an encounter with the God who is God and was sharing with him at the table. It's an amazing story. You don't want to miss it. That is next week here on The Great Reality Open Forum with Bruce and Marv. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And it is a privilege. It's a privilege for me to have you guys here. It really, really is. Again, if you'd like information...
Stop with the mush.
Stop with the mush. If you'd like information or you'd like to read or obtain any of the books from author Dick B., really the world's #1 authority on the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, visit dickb.com and check that out. And our prayers and our thoughts are with the family, Dick's family, at this difficult time. Until our next broadcast. This is the Monty'man along with Bruce and Marv, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye, my friends.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty.